I clearly recall the day I signed up for the Marines right after graduating from college, eager to serve my country. The military's discipline seemed like a perfect fit for me, and over the years, I found a sense of purpose in my duties. But with each deployment, pieces of my personal life seemed to slip away. After nearly 30 years, I finally retired. My wife, Lisa, and I had weathered many storms together, raising our kids amidst the chaos. I thought our bond was unbreakable, but adjusting to civilian life turned out to be tougher than I anticipated, and we slowly started drifting apart. The warning signs were subtle, and I missed them, too comfortable in our daily routine. Trust, I realized too late, is a fragile thing. We lived in a quiet cul-de-sac with simple houses. At our first neighborhood barbecue, Lisa and I, now empty nesters, met our neighbors. Our son, Ethan, was in college, and our daughter, Claire, had joined the Coast Guard, which didn't sit well with me as a former Marine captain. At the party, Lisa ended up stuck in a conversation with John, the guy from across the street, and she didn't seem thrilled about it. She shot me a look, silently asking for a rescue, but I was deep in conversation with Sarah, a fit single mom. When Lisa gave me a more insistent glance, I finally brought Sarah over to John, freeing Lisa, but she wasn't happy with how long it took me. As we left the party, we exchanged nods with the Robinsons, a young couple who gave off an odd, almost secretive vibe. My years in military intelligence made me suspicious, but I followed Lisa home, hoping for a quiet evening. The strain of military life had taken a toll on our marriage. We had nearly split up during my deployment to Germany, but somehow we managed to get back on track. Yet deep down, I knew something had happened during that difficult period. Infidelity is common in military marriages, though no one likes to talk about it. Lisa and I were lucky to still be together, but I suspected she might have cheated while I was away. How did I know? A tip from an old girlfriend who managed a hotel near Lisa's work had raised my suspicions. She mentioned seeing Lisa at the Greenfield Inn, which made me uneasy. I even hired a private investigator, but it turned out Lisa's hospital was undergoing renovations, and she had to park there out of necessity. Still, her early arrivals at work stopped when I came home, leaving me uncertain. My time in Germany had taken a toll on our family. A year apart created a rift I couldn't close, and the strain made me realize our marriage wasn't as solid as I had believed. Though I never figured out who the other man might have been, Lisa seemed determined to make things work, as was I. Eventually, I gave up my passion for flying, transitioning to military intelligence to reduce the risks. Despite several deployments to the Middle East after September 11th, this new role gave Lisa some peace of mind. But I still worried about our marriage and decided to retire rather than chase the rank of general, knowing another deployment could end us for good. In retirement, my consulting job paid better than staying in the Marines, and I was there for my kids' graduations with Lisa by my side, which was priceless. Lisa continued her nursing education and became the top nurse on a heart surgery team. She worked closely with Dr. Ben Martin, a skilled and confident surgeon. I noticed how he looked at Lisa, and her frequent praise for him made me uneasy. When I expressed my concerns, Lisa admitted that harmless flirting at work helped relieve stress, but insisted it didn't go any further. She reminded me of my close working relationship with a CIA colleague, Karen, before my deployment to the Middle East. Though Karen had shown interest in me, I had to trust Lisa just as she had trusted me with Karen. The conversation didn't end well and lingered in the background of our lives. The truth was, Lisa had a reason to be suspicious. Karen made a move on me after an ambush in Iraq, and in a moment of weakness, I almost gave in. We were interrupted before anything happened, and I convinced myself that it evened the score for whatever Lisa might have done in Germany. But deep down, I knew I was only fooling myself. Now Lisa and her team were heading to Central America for 6 weeks with Doctors Without Borders. I wasn't thrilled about her being with Dr. Ben, but I didn't want to stand in the way of her career after all the support she had given me during mine. "I've stayed home for you many times," she said. "Now it's your turn to wait for me." What could I say to that? Things were tense when she left for the airport. She spent the night packing and talking to her mom, leaving us with little time together. I didn't want to argue, so I let it go. The next morning, she was gone. No goodbye, no note. I checked for messages, but found none. I was both annoyed and worried. After calming down with coffee, I tracked her flight to Costa Rica and hoped she would call or text when she landed, but she didn't. I sent her a brief message. Hope you're okay. Nice way to leave things, Lisa. Speaks volumes. No reply. Not that day or the next. Running usually helped clear my head, but frustration pushed me to run faster. As I neared our cul-de-sac, I was out of breath when Mark Robinson called out to me. He lived behind us, and his wife, Kate, was tending to the garden. Nice view, huh? He joked, noticing where my gaze had wandered. I brushed it off, saying I needed a shower. He invited me over, even though Lisa wasn't around, suggesting steaks and drinks. His wife smiled, her subtle movements adding to the strange vibe. I took the long way home, still preoccupied with Lisa's silence. After a shower, I sat in our empty house, waiting for a call that never came. It was dark when I finally decided to call her hotel. I knew her itinerary and room number, but there was no answer. The hotel manager, Juan Espinoza, confirmed she had checked in, but seemed hesitant to say more. He promised to check on her and have her call me, but something felt off. I then searched my contacts for Lisa's close colleague, Penny, hoping she might know more. Just then, my phone rang. It was Juan from Costa Rica, not Lisa. Oh, Ian Sueta. Any news about my wife? Senor, she wasn't in her room. Maybe she's out with some other ladies, he said, becoming less cooperative. Can you do me a favor, Juan? Yes, senor, he replied, less polite than before. What's Dr. Ben Martin's room number? Room 302, senor. Do you want me to call him? I winced when I realized that Lisa's room number was 918, not 915. Hold on, Juan. One more thing. Claro, senor, but I'm tied up. Please reach out to Mrs. Emma Richardson's room, he responded briskly. After a brief hesitation, he complied, and I was placed on hold. Eventually, Emma answered, likely recognizing my voice, possibly informed by Juan. Hello, Emma. I greeted, striving to keep my tone steady. Sorry to bother you, but where is my wife? She sounded irritated. Why are you asking? Don't play games, Emma. Lisa's room is next to Dr. Ben Martin's, and she's not there. You know why, don't you? You should talk to your wife, she replied, but I could hear a man's voice in the background asking, who's that? Perhaps I should speak with your husband about the man in your room, Emma. I have his number, I stated firmly. She quickly backpedaled, pleading, please don't call my husband. This is the first time. I don't care how many times you've been unfaithful, Emma. Tell me where my wife is, or I'll call him right now. Reluctantly, Emma transferred me to Dr. Ben's room. The phone rang, and Ben answered, assuming it was Emma. Sorry to disturb you, Ben, I said coldly. This is Rick Anderson. I need to talk to my wife. He hesitated, then feigned ignorance. Why are you asking me? If you value your hands, connect me with Lisa now. After some shuffling, I heard Lisa's voice. Hand me the phone, Ben, she demanded. Rick, I didn't expect this call tonight. What are you doing in his room, Lisa? Why didn't you respond to my texts? What do you think, Rick? She snapped. I was enjoying a quiet evening after a hectic day until you called. Just tell me the truth. Are you and Ben having an affair? She paused, then asked Ben to leave. After a moment of silence, she finally spoke. Rick, I've been a good wife and mother. I'll be home in 6 weeks and we can talk then, but right now just let me have this just once. If you don't mind, I replied, stunned. You didn't even have the decency to talk to me before you left. Rick, all that would have done is start a fight. You think, I said sarcastically. Maybe I would have asked you to stay. I might have stayed, she admitted, but I needed this just once to feel alive. And Ben? He's just a distraction, Rick. I don't love him. How convenient, I muttered. Just then, I heard a knock at the door. Lisa, I have to go. I love you, Rick, she said softly. I love you too, Lisa, but I'm not sure I'm still in love with you. I hung up the phone. When I opened the door, Kate was standing there alone. Good evening, Rick, she said with a smile. Hello, Kate, I replied, noticing how stunning she looked. Are you going to let me in? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Sure, I said, stepping aside. She handed me a bottle of wine. Cabernet Sauvignon, my favorite. Something Lisa must have told her. I was hoping you needed some company, Kate said. Not sure how good I'll be, but I do have some questions. Ask away, she replied, searching for wine glasses. As I poured, I asked, "Where's Mark?" "He's out playing basketball with some friends." "I see," I said, thinking about how often I had left Lisa alone during my military career. "Lisa's in South America, right?" Kate asked. "Have you heard from her?" "Funny you ask. I was just talking to her when you knocked." "Oh, I'm sorry, Rick. Did I interrupt?" "No. We said what needed to be said," I replied, sensing she could tell I was in a bad mood. "Kate, I think we need to talk." We locked eyes, both of us questioning what was happening. Kate pursed her lips, then nodded. "Let's sit," I suggested, pointing to the living room. She sat a slight distance from me, crossing her legs. "How much has Lisa told you?" she asked, flipping the question back to me. "I had hoped Lisa talked to you before she left." "Did she?" I asked. "No. I ended up playing phone tag with her, only to find out she's in South America with her doctor boyfriend. Then she told me to talk to you, so let's stop the games. What did you and Lisa plan before she left?" Kate took a long sip of wine, gathering her courage. "Lisa and I ran into each other at the mall some time ago, and we ended up having drinks at my place. I don't know where you and Mark were, but we talked, and I opened up about my marriage and my husband's interests." She paused, deciding how much to reveal, so I waited in silence. "My husband likes to share me," she finally admitted. "Share you?" I asked, piecing it together. "With other men," she confirmed. "I told Lisa because I wanted her to know, in case she might let me pursue you." "How did Lisa take that?" I asked. At first, she was shocked. She listened quietly as I explained. Later, she agreed, on the condition that it happens while she's out of the country. I scoffed, amazed at the situation. "So Lisa never discussed this with me?" "No. She dropped that bombshell on me tonight, just as you were on your way over," Kate said, clearly surprised by the timing. "I found out about her and Dr. Ben tonight." I admitted. "Mark and I have an open marriage, but we never go behind each other's backs." "So Mark knows you're here?" I asked, seeking clarity. "Yes," she confirmed. "He knows I'm attracted to you and has no issue with it." "You've had other steady partners?" I inquired. "Just one off and on for 2 years," she explained. "Mostly, we meet men out of town for adventures and Mark watches." I asked, surprised. "He watches?" "Yes. It's safer that way," she said casually. I shook my head in disbelief. "How long have you two been doing this?" "For years," she replied as if it were perfectly normal. "And Lisa agreed to this arrangement." I try to piece it all together. "So, only when she's away?" I asked. "Yes," Kate clarified. "But only then. Did she mention anything about what she'd be doing while she's gone?" I pressed further, trying to understand the full picture. "No," she admitted, "but I got the feeling she might be doing something similar. Maybe giving me permission to be with you eased her conscience." "I wish she had talked to me," I said, feeling the burden of my own past mistakes weigh heavily on my mind. Kate then handed me an envelope. "Lisa left this for you before we do anything," she said, stepping into the restroom. The envelope simply had my name, Rick, written on it. I took a deep breath and tore it open. "Dear Rick, by now, you've probably figured out that I've crossed a line with Ben. But before you get all righteous on me, remember Karen in Iraq. I never had proof, but I was almost certain you crossed a line with her. I paid close attention to your behavior when I helped you with those security drills. I saw how you avoided eye contact whenever her name came up. You've never been good at lying, Rick. When Ben first made a move, I kept it to myself. Maybe I should have told you. Just like I should have taken the chance to find comfort elsewhere during those years when you were off being a hero. I came close, especially during your deployment in Germany, but I stayed loyal. Then Karen visited me while you were away, and her smug demeanor confirmed what I suspected. I'm almost certain you were unfaithful. If I'm wrong, then this is the first time I betrayed you. But I don't think I am. Here's the situation. While I'm away, we're both off the hook, no strings attached. You're not my husband, and I'm not your wife for these next 6 weeks. If we still care for each other when I get back, we can try to make this work. If not, we'll let go of what we once had. I made this choice freely, Rick. I don't love Ben, but I'm attracted to him. He'll be just a memory if you still want me. If you love someone, set them free, right? I'll be back in 6 weeks. If you want to try again, meet me at the Madison Hotel near the airport. If not, don't bother coming to the airport. Just move on. Love always. Lisa. P.S. Kate was supposed to get tested for STDs before tonight. Make sure she shows you the results. Ben and I were tested before we left, and I'll get tested again before I return. If we're going to rebuild trust, this is the first step. After reading the letter, I looked over to see Kate at the kitchen island, pouring herself another glass of wine. Are you all right? She asked, noticing my expression. I'll be fine, I replied, though I wasn't sure I believed it. She nodded and came back over with the bottle, sitting closer this time. She topped off my glass, her eyes searching mine. So, Rick, where do we go from here? Right now, nowhere, I said firmly. You and Lisa have been planning this for weeks, and I'm just finding out about it tonight. It seems like she's been up to something for a while, doesn't it? Kate looked down, clearly uncomfortable. I think so, she admitted. If I were single, things might be different, I continued, but I don't like being used, especially by someone I've spent my life with. You said this was her way of dealing with her guilt? It seems like it, Kate said softly. It's clear this was all orchestrated behind my back. She even told you what wine to bring. I'm not okay with that, I said, frustration seeping into my voice. I understand, she whispered. So, nothing is going to happen between us? Not tonight, I said, shaking my head. I need time to process all this before I make any decisions. So, should we expect you for dinner in a couple of days? She asked, her voice hesitant. I don't know, Kate. I've got a lot to figure out. We'll see. All right, she said softly. Just know I'm here if you need anything. Thanks, Kate, I said, showing her to the door. Good night, and thanks for the wine. She took that as her cue to leave, and I couldn't help but watch as she walked out the door. After she left, I reread Lisa's letter. It's funny how much more you can notice when you go through it again. The anger in Lisa's words when she wrote about Karen stood out, even though she was never sure that anything happened between us. Then, just a few lines later, she almost encouraged me to get involved with Kate. The contradiction was jarring. Yes, Karen and I got close during that operation, but nothing truly happened. It wasn't a premeditated betrayal like Lisa's affair with Ben or this setup with Kate. I had felt guilty back then, but I also suspected Lisa had been unfaithful, so it felt like a twisted kind of justice. But why did Lisa insist I not meet her at the airport? Was she afraid I'd confront her? I've never given her any reason to think I'd react violently. And why meet at a hotel instead of coming straight home? The thought suddenly struck me. Was she really that manipulative? Given how she orchestrated this whole situation, the answer seemed clear. But what was really going on? I glanced around the room, suddenly suspicious. Could there be hidden cameras? I decided to make some calls, but not inside, just in case. I grabbed Lisa's itinerary and stepped outside to the porch swing. Lisa knows I work as a consultant, but she has no idea I'm actually the head of security for Atlas Global, overseeing the safety of our international operations. I have connections I can rely on when needed. My first call was to David Harris, the lead tech specialist in my team. He answered promptly. Harris here. David, it's Rick. Got a minute? Pretty good, boss, Alan replied. But I doubt you called just to chat. No, I didn't, I admitted. I need your expertise. I then gave him a quick rundown of the situation and my concerns. I'm really sorry to hear that, Rick. I understand, Alan said, his tone sympathetic. Give me 45 minutes to grab my gear, and I'll be over. Thanks, Alan. I appreciate it, I said before hanging up. Next, I scrolled through my contacts and made another call. Hola, Senor Rick, came the upbeat voice on the other end. Ernesto. How are you, my friend? I asked warmly. Ernesto Silva was my trusted contact in South America, based in Bogota, the very city where Lisa and her lover were staying. I knew I could count on him. Doing well here, boss, he said. Didn't expect your call today. What's going on? I gave him the same summary I'd given Alan. Damn, Rick, that's rough, he replied. You need someone on the ground to keep an eye on things, right? Exactly, Ernesto, I said, providing him with the hotel details, room numbers, and the manager's name. Can you handle it? Absolutely. You want video, audio, the whole package? Yes, everything. Send me daily updates, and let me know if you need extra funds. You got it. I'll get on it right away and be in touch. Thanks, Ernesto. I really appreciate it. Give my regards to your family. Will do. Talk soon. After the call, I emailed him Lisa's itinerary. Shortly after, Alan arrived with his equipment. Within half an hour, he found wireless cameras hidden in several rooms, mostly concealed in smoke detectors, along with some microphones. Our landline had also been tapped. These devices don't have a long range, Alan noted. There's likely a receiver somewhere nearby. We searched and found a locked box with a laptop in the attic. Alan guessed it was being used to store and upload data from the cameras and microphones. The equipment was tagged with a label from Northgate Security, a local investigation firm, along with their contact information. "What do you want to do with this?" Alan asked. "Disable everything." I considered, then reconsidered. "Actually, just disable the camera and mic in my office, but leave the rest intact. Let them watch. I'll make it as boring as possible." Alan chuckled, removing the devices from my office. He then checked the computer Lisa and I shared and discovered a key logger and spyware, which he promptly removed. "Why do you think she went to all this trouble?" I asked. "Maybe she's setting the stage for a divorce," Alan suggested, echoing what I had suspected. "You're probably right," I said, sighing. "Any other thoughts?" "If the investigator installed this stuff, he might still have a key. You should change the locks and update your security codes." "Good call. I'll handle it right away. Thanks for everything, Alan." After he left, I immediately contacted a locksmith to change the locks and codes. I wasn't in the mood for any surprises. While I waited, I logged into Lisa's account on our shared computer, curious about what she'd been up to. Her email opened without needing a password. Her credentials were saved, and she hadn't updated them, as I'd suggested. For once, I was glad she didn't follow my advice. Normally, I'd respect her privacy, but this was different. I searched through her emails and found a series of exchanges with Ben, the doctor she was now involved with in Bogota. Rather than read them all at once, I exported the messages to a thumb drive for later review. There were also emails with our kids, but nothing particularly unusual. When the locksmith arrived, I showed him which doors needed new locks, then returned to the computer. One email thread between Lisa and Ben had the subject line "attorney," which grabbed my attention. In the thread, Lisa told Ben she had spoken with her lawyer, reviewed the proposed divorce settlement, and decided to proceed despite her lawyer's advice. Ben seemed taken aback, questioning her decision since she had claimed she still loved me and intended to stay together. Lisa's response was unsettling. She planned to stay with me, but only under her terms, and revealed that I'd unknowingly been a fool for years. She laid out her plan. She would serve me divorce papers at the Madison Hotel when she returned and push me to sign a post-nuptial agreement. If I refused, she would use evidence of my involvement with Kate to destroy me financially. She even mentioned the possibility of suing Kate for alienation of affection, further tightening her control over the situation. Ben expressed concern about the risks, but Lisa seemed confident that she had everything under control. She even confessed to having cheated on me for years, beginning when I was stationed in Germany. After reading the thread, I printed it out for safekeeping. By then, the locksmith had finished, and I paid him, including a tip for the after-hours service. I shut down the computer and decided to head out for a burger and a drink, picking up some cigars to help calm my nerves. As I left, I noticed a dark SUV tailing me, most likely the private investigator Lisa had hired. Despite my attempts to lose him, he stayed close. When I pulled into Murphy's Bar and Grill, he followed. Frustrated, I got out, walked up to the SUV, and yanked the door open, catching the driver off guard. "Who the hell are you? And why are you following me?" I demanded. The man stuttered, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Cut the crap," I said. "You've been on my tail since I left my house. Are you the PI my wife hired?" "I have no idea what you mean," he replied nervously. "You're lying." "I'm done with liars," I told him, my patience at its limit. "So maybe I should teach you a lesson. What do you think?" "Please, don't hurt me. I'll leave," he begged, fear evident in his voice. "Don't let me catch you around here again." "Understood," I warned, my tone hard as steel. "I got it." "I'm sorry," he muttered before speeding off. After he left, I walked into the bar, ordered a burger and a beer, and took a seat at the counter. The bartender, reading my mood, asked, "Rough night?" "Yeah, something like that," I replied. "Can't live with him, but you'd be in trouble if you tried to live without him, right?" He joked, managing to pull a slight grin from me. I finished my meal, grabbed another beer when I got home, and headed outside with a cigar. As I sat there, smoking, a plan started to take shape in my mind. I pulled out my phone, did a quick search, checked my calendar, and settled on a date. I'd have to make a few calls to get things rolling. Just then, I got a text from Ernesto, all set. First update in the morning. Please send $250 for expenses. I quickly sent the funds via PayPal, replying, "Thanks, Ernesto. We'll talk tomorrow." I finished my beer and cigar, then went upstairs. Feeling curious, I opened Lisa's nightstand drawer and found her rings. I removed my wedding ring and placed it beside hers, then glanced up at the smoke detector, where I knew a camera was hidden. I flipped it off without a second thought. The next morning, I checked Lisa's email and saw a new message titled "Surveillance Compromised." The email detailed how I had discovered the bugging devices and the investigator following me. I marked the email as unread and logged out. After work, I reviewed the footage Ernesto had sent of Lisa and Ben. It wasn't much, but I noted her telling Ben, "He's probably with that woman next door. I'll have video evidence tomorrow from my lawyer." I paused the video and called Ernesto. "Senor Rick, thanks for the payment. Did you get the footage?" "I did, Ernesto. Listen, I've got a plan, and I need your help." I explained my idea, and he agreed it could be done within 10 days. "Why 10 days?" he asked. "That's our 25th wedding anniversary. I want to make sure it's a day she never forgets." "You've got some guts, Senor Rick," he chuckled. After ending the call, I scrolled through my contacts and found Karen's number, someone I hadn't spoken to since our time in Iraq. I dialed, and to my surprise, she answered. "Rick Weston." "It's been ages," she exclaimed. I gave her a brief overview of what was going on, and she listened in disbelief. When I read her Lisa's letter, she responded angrily. "That lying snake. I never said anything like that. We were just doing our jobs, covering each other's backs." "Thanks, Karen. I regret what happened between us, but it doesn't justify what Lisa's doing now," I said. "Rick, you've got nothing to regret. We were under extreme pressure, and I don't have any regrets." "So, what's your plan?" she asked. I laid out my plan for Karen and waited for her reaction. After a moment, she said, "I like it. I really do. I've got someone in Colombia handling part of it, but I can help with the rest." "When can it be done?" I asked. "In 10 days. On your anniversary," I replied. "Oh, you're wicked," she laughed. "Consider it my gift to you." We both laughed, then she added, "You know, I've thought about you a lot since the war in the Middle East." "I've thought about you too," I admitted. "We were a great team. I haven't found that connection with anyone else." "That's a shame," she responded. "Yeah, life can be tough," she replied with a sigh. "I've been thinking about retiring. They've got me stuck behind a desk these days." "If you retire, I know a place that would love to have you on board," I suggested. "Would that place involve working with a certain retired Army colonel?" she asked, a playful tone creeping into her voice. "It would," I confirmed. "Well, that's definitely something to look forward to," she said, then added more seriously, "Rick, do you think we could pick up where we left off?" "Yes," I answered truthfully. "Lisa's made her choices. I'm not going back." "Good," she said, relief in her voice. "Because I'd like to finish what we started." "I'd like that too," I agreed, "but I need to take care of a few things first." "I understand," she said. "Just don't keep me waiting too long." "I won't," I promised. "But this divorce will take time." "I get it," she replied. "Just know I'm here if you need to talk." "It's great hearing your voice again," I told her. "Yours too," she replied warmly, "but my dinner's getting cold, so I'll talk to you soon." "Promise." I teased. "You'd better," she joked back. After we ended the call, I felt better than I had in months. Karen still cared, and that meant a lot. My thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the back door. It was Kate, holding a plate of lasagna. "I thought you might be hungry," she said. "Mind if I come in? Or should I just leave this here?" "Just put it on the counter," I replied. She smiled and set the plate down. "I hope you like it. Or maybe you'd prefer something else?" she suggested, her tone clearly implying more. I was tempted, but my conversation with Karen had reminded me of what really mattered. "As tempting as that sounds, I'm going to have to pass," I said. Her expression shifted to concern. "What's wrong?" "Lisa gave you the green light. I do find you attractive." "That may be true," I said, pointing toward the smoke detector. but Lisa's got a camera hidden right there. Why don't you wave hello? She looked up at the detector, shocked. Are you serious? Yes, I confirmed. I confirmed it. She installed cameras all over the house and even hired a private investigator. He might be watching you too, I added, noticing Kate's unsettled expression. I had no idea, she said, visibly shaken. Come to my office, I suggested. Once inside, I handed her a printout of the emails between Lisa and Ben. After reading them, she was stunned. Oh my God, Rick. I didn't know really, I swear. I believe you, I reassured her. She played both of us. What are you going to do? She asked, clearly worried. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm not getting involved with anyone until it's finalized. I replied, my voice firm. Can we still be friends? She asked, her voice tinged with hope. Of course, I said, but nothing more. Okay, Rick, she sighed. I'm sorry about everything. Enjoy the lasagna. Thanks, Kate. I responded, walking her to the back door. As she left, I couldn't help but notice how good she looked in those shorts, but I wasn't about to let myself get distracted. After she was gone, I changed into my running gear, figuring the lasagna would still be warm when I got back. After my run and a quick shower, I dug into the lasagna. It was perfect, loaded with cheese, mushrooms, and meat, just the way I liked it. I washed the plate, grabbed a beer, and headed to my office, pausing to flip off the camera in the living room on the way. I checked Lisa's email. She had sent a message to the investigator, instructing him to ease off for now. Nothing else of significance in her inbox. Then I looked into her finances. We had 3 accounts, one for each of us and a shared household account that I noticed she had accumulated a significant amount of savings, but had also paid a large retainer to an attorney named Allison Hargraves and a substantial fee to Northgate Security, the firm that installed the surveillance equipment. A few Victoria's Secret charges caught my eye, things I'd never seen her wear. Curious about Hargraves, I did a quick search and found she was a family law attorney with a controversial reputation. She was known for advocating extreme feminist views and promoting a domineering wife lifestyle. Her book had caused quite a stir, and she was notorious for encouraging women to assert control over their husbands. I bought the cheapest Kindle version and took it out to the patio with a beer and a cigar. After skimming through the book, it was clear Hargraves had a deep-seated disdain for men. I couldn't believe Lisa had chosen her as an attorney. It said a lot about where her mind was. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ernesto. I can set it up, but it'll cost $1,000. I decided to transfer the money from Lisa's account, ensuring any trace would lead back to her. I messaged Ernesto to confirm the transfer was complete. The next few days passed quickly. My routine became checking Ernesto's updates, monitoring Lisa's email, going to work, running, eating, and unwinding with a beer, a cigar, and some TV before bed. I didn't care that Lisa hadn't called or texted. I was relishing the peace and quiet. Whatever feelings I had for her were gone. I only saw Kate once more after showing her the emails. When I returned her plate, Mark invited me to dinner, but I politely declined, saying I had things to take care of. He seemed a bit disappointed, but I was relieved that Kate stayed away. I didn't need any more complications. The highlight of my days was talking to Karen. We spoke every couple of days, discussing life, dreams, pets, and even my kids. The more we talked, the closer I felt to her, and I realized I was falling for her all over again. Eventually, I scheduled a meeting with Allison Hargraves. Her receptionist welcomed me with coffee, and I shook Allison's hand as I introduced myself. She seemed around my age, well-dressed, and in decent shape. I noticed the ring on her finger and couldn't help but wonder about her husband's life. So, you're considering a divorce? Allison asked, getting straight to the point. Yes, that's right, I replied. And your name is Weston? She confirmed. Correct. She frowned as she checked her computer, then asked, What's your wife's name? Lisa, short for Elizabeth. Well, Mr. Weston, I'm afraid I can't represent you due to a conflict of interest. I'm already representing your wife. I figured as much, I said calmly. I also know you only represent women. Seems a bit one-sided, doesn't it? She stared at me without flinching. If you knew that, why did you come to see me? As a former military intelligence officer, I like to understand the people I'm up against. Up against? Is that how you see me? More or less. I read your book and your New York Times interview. You recruit your clients into your ideology, right? Did you do that with my wife? That's privileged information, she replied, her tone icy. Of course. Did you know Lisa was going to Colombia and what she planned to do there? Once again, that's privileged information, she said, her voice firm. I nodded. I noticed you're married. Your book's chapter on empowered wives was enlightening. Do you treat your husband the way you suggest, by humiliating and controlling him? That's none of your business, Mr. Weston. This meeting is over. I smiled and stood up. I'd like to say it was a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Hargraves, but I'd be lying. We'll likely cross paths again. Good day. As I walked out, I added, by the way, I found your book repulsive. Have a great day. I noticed the receptionist smirking as I left, possibly overhearing our conversation. Finally, our 25th anniversary arrived. I took the day off, knowing it would be anything but ordinary. Early that morning, Karen texted me, confirming she had handled everything as I'd asked. Later, I received a message from Ernesto. Check your email. I opened the video he sent. It showed a dusty road with a makeshift checkpoint. 3 SUVs approached, and armed soldiers stopped them. They searched the vehicles and found something significant, prompting more soldiers to arrive. Ben and Lisa were dragged from their SUV, handcuffed, and taken away. A tow truck hauled the SUV off, and the other vehicles were eventually allowed to pass. I stared at the screen, shocked. I immediately called Ernesto. I saw the video, Ernesto. What exactly happened? We did as planned, planted a small amount of stuff, but it turns out Ben was involved in smuggling large quantities of something far more serious. My men noticed the pills being loaded and backed off to avoid any cartel connections. Smart move. Where are Lisa and Ben now? They're both in jail. It seems Lisa might have known about the operation, but it's unclear how deeply she was involved. They have 48 hours to present the case to a judge, and the investigation could take up to 90 days, though it'll probably move faster. So, the consulate's aware by now. They should be, Ernesto confirmed. I'll keep you updated. Thanks, Ernesto. This isn't what I expected, but if Lisa's mixed up in trafficking, she deserves what's coming. After hanging up, I called Karen to fill her in. She wasn't too surprised and offered to tap into her contacts in Colombia to gather more details. I'll let you know as soon as I have any news, she promised. While waiting to hear back from Karen, I grabbed a trash bag and systematically removed all the cameras and microphones that Lisa's PI had installed throughout the house. I also gathered the receiver and laptop from the attic, tossed everything into the bag, and placed it in the driveway. Then I called Northgate Security. Northgate Security, how can I help you? A woman answered. I need to speak with the person in charge. I demanded. Sure, sir, one moment, she stammered, clearly caught off guard. A few seconds later, I recognized the voice of the man I had confronted at Murphy's bar. James Smith speaking. How can I assist you? This is Rick Anderson. Remember me? I asked, keeping my tone firm. Your client is now sitting in a Colombian jail on pill trafficking charges. I've removed all your equipment from my house. It's in a trash bag in my driveway. If it's still there tomorrow, it's going in the trash. Yes, sir, he replied quickly, his voice tense. I hung up, not interested in any further conversation. The next morning, the bag was gone. I assumed Smith had picked it up, but I wasn't concerned either way. Shortly after, Karen called. I just got off the phone with the station chief in Bogota, she said, getting straight to the point. What did you find out? I asked. Colombian authorities have been keeping an eye on Ben from the moment he arrived. He's linked to a significant drug cartel. If Lisa's implicated, she could be looking at a lengthy prison sentence. The judge on this case is known for being tough on foreigners, Karen explained. How much time could she be facing? I asked, the weight of the situation pressing on me. At least 10 years, she replied. Well, if she's guilty, that's what she deserves. How much were they caught with? I asked. About 20 pounds of white powder and flea powder, she informed me. Damn, I muttered. Expect a visit from the State Department soon, Karen warned. Keep me posted on how it goes. I will. Thanks, I replied, ending the call. Afterward, I contacted the hotel in Bogota. When Pablo answered, I asked to be connected to Penny Washington's room. Penny answered, sounding nervous. Penny, it's Rick Anderson. Do you know where Lisa is? It's our anniversary, and I wanted to reach her. Is she with Ben? No, Rick, she's not, Penny replied, her voice trembling. Lisa and Ben were arrested at a checkpoint for drug trafficking. The soldiers took them away. We were questioned and told to stay at the hotel. It feels like house arrest. Have you told Josh? I asked pointedly. No, she admitted quietly. Penny, I'm going to talk to him soon, I informed her. Please, Rick, don't tell him. It'll destroy him, she pleaded. Not as much as your cheating will, I replied sharply. He deserves to know. I ended the call and immediately contacted Josh, giving him the details and offering to send video evidence of Penny's affair. Thanks for telling me, Rick. This will be the last time she cheats on me, Josh said, his voice resolute. I sent him the videos and then contacted a divorce lawyer, scheduling an appointment for 3 days later. A couple of days later, my supervisor, Bill Hastings, called me into his office. A man from the State Department, Thomas Herman, was there waiting. Rick, your wife, Lisa, has been arrested in Colombia on drug trafficking charges, Thomas said. We can monitor her situation, but can't intervene with local laws. She's also been placed on a no-fly list, so even if released, she won't be able to return to the U.S. How much prison time could she be facing? I asked. Up to 12 years, Thomas replied. After 7 or 8 years, she might be eligible for conditional release, but she won't be able to leave Colombia. He handed me a pamphlet on how to send her money for legal fees and other expenses, then offered to assist with arranging visitation. I told him I'd think it over and would be in touch. After Thomas left, Bill closed the door and said, Rick, this could impact your security clearance and your job. Take some time off and get this situation under control. I will, Bill. Thanks. Back at home, I searched Lisa's emails for anything suspicious. I found an exchange with Ben from 3 months before their trip. Ben had asked if Lisa wanted to make extra money while in Colombia. After some hesitation, she agreed to his plan. Good girl, Ben had replied. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. I printed out the email chain, saved it as a PDF, and added it to a thumb drive along with other incriminating emails. Next, I reviewed the videos skipping the explicit parts and found a conversation they had the day before they were caught. I noted the timestamp on the video. Are you ready? Tomorrow's the big day, Ben asked. I think so, Lisa replied, her voice betraying some nerves. Good. The product will be in our vehicle tomorrow morning, packed in boxes marked as medicine. We won't even have to touch it. And you're sure we won't get caught? Lisa asked, anxiety creeping into her voice. I've been on that road plenty of times, no checkpoints. If this works, we can do it again and retire comfortably. Sounds good to me, she agreed. Perfect, I muttered, saving the video to my thumb drive. I needed to clear my head, so I emailed the kids to arrange a Skype call for the next evening. Then I called Ernesto to update him. Damn, what's your next move? He asked. I'm going through the rest of the evidence. I've got a meeting with my lawyer tomorrow, and I'm planning to deliver the divorce papers in person. You're coming here? He asked, a bit surprised. Yes, and I'll also hand the evidence to the prosecutor. You can stay with me and my family, Ernesto offered. Thanks, Ernesto. I'm looking forward to some of Lupe's cooking, I said with a laugh. We both chuckled, and I promised to call when I was ready to fly down. Afterward, I drained Lisa's account, sending the money to her via Western Union for expenses. Then I packed her belongings into trash bags, including our wedding album, and stuffed them into her car. I called her parents to inform them about the divorce and Lisa's situation. They were devastated, but agreed to pick up her things. They were stunned when I mentioned her involvement in drug trafficking. Are you sure Lisa's involved in this? Her father asked, struggling to believe it. Yes, I have evidence, which I'll be handing over to the prosecutor. They arrived later, took her car and belongings, and expressed their sorrow over the situation. Please stay in touch, Rick, her mother said as she hugged me. I will, I promised. After they left, I felt drained. I grabbed a beer and a cigar and headed to the porch. Karen called to check on me. Hey, how are you holding up? She asked. I've been better, but hearing from you helps, I replied. We talked, and I shared an idea I had. After a pause, she said, That's the best idea I've heard in a long time. Let's make it happen. We ended the call on a positive note, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The next day, I met with my attorney, Lisa Hawkins. She was sharp, confident, and nothing like Marcy's lawyer. I handed over the evidence and explained Lisa's legal troubles in Colombia. "This will definitely work in our favor," Lisa said. "What do you want out of this?" "Everything except her 401k, clothes, and car. I've already sent most of her money for her expenses." "That's reasonable. How do you plan to serve her?" "I'll deliver the papers myself." "Okay, I'll have them ready in 2 days." We discussed whether it was worth pursuing action against Ben or Lisa's lawyer, but Lisa advised against it, noting that those cases rarely go anywhere. I agreed and left after paying a retainer. Later, I Skyped with the kids to break the news. "What's going on, Dad?" Ethan asked. "I have some news. Your mom and I are getting divorced." Both kids were shocked. "Why, Dad?" Ethan asked. "Did something happen?" I gave them a brief explanation and revealed that their mother was in a Colombian jail for drug trafficking. "Are you sure she's involved?" Claire asked, her voice filled with concern. "Yes, I have evidence, which I'll be handing over to the prosecutor." "You're going to help put her in prison?" Ethan asked, trying to process everything. "She broke the law, son. I can't just look the other way. We've talked about the dangers of this stuff before." "I know," Ethan said quietly. "But this is really messed up." "It is, son, but your mom made her choice, and now she has to face the consequences." We talked a bit longer, and I answered all their questions. It was tough, but by the end, they understood why I had to do what I was doing. I promised to send them the address where they could write to her, and we ended the call with a tearful goodbye. Afterward, I called Thomas to arrange visitation for the day after I got the divorce papers. He agreed to set it up, and we ended the call. Then I updated Ernesto on my plans. "Do you know who's prosecuting the case?" I asked. "Yes, Ricardo Montoya. He's a tough one." "Good. I'll bring him some evidence when I get there." We ended the call, and I made one last call to Karen. She listened as I filled her in, and by the time we finished, I felt a lot better. 2 days later, Lisa informed me that the papers were filed and ready for Lisa's signature. With my bags packed and tickets ready, I grabbed my passport, picked up the papers, and headed to the airport after letting Ernesto know I was on my way. I received a message from Thomas confirming the visitation arrangements. Ernesto met me after I cleared customs, and we collected my luggage before heading out. "Where to first?" he asked. "To see Senor Montoya," I replied. At the government building, Ernesto parked, and I headed inside to Montoya's office. A receptionist tried to stop me, but before I could say much, a well-dressed man appeared. "I'm Senor Montoya," he introduced himself. "And you are?" "Rick Anderson," I replied, shaking his hand. "I believe you're handling the case against my wife, Lisa." He invited me into his office and asked, "What information do you have for me?" I handed him a thumb drive. "This contains video footage of her and Ben discussing their plans to move drugs, along with their email exchanges. I've also included her email credentials if you need to dig further." Montoya studied me for a moment. "You realize it's my job to put her away for a long time, right?" "Yes, I understand. So why are you giving me this evidence? Shouldn't you be trying to help her defense?" When I didn't respond right away, he continued, She was having an affair with Dr. Cardosa, wasn't she?" "Yes," I admitted. "I see. So this is about revenge." "No, irraplia firmly. I'm a retired Army intelligence officer. I can't ignore the law, even for my soon-to-be ex-wife. I'm also here to serve her divorce papers." "Use the evidence as you see fit," I said. Montoya nodded. "All right, Mr. Anderson. I'll review your evidence. How long will you be in Bogota?" "Just a day or two, enough to serve the papers and return to the States." "Very well. Welcome to Bogota," he said as we shook hands. When I returned to the car, Ernesto asked, "How did it go?" "You were right. Montoya is tough," I replied. He chuckled. "You have no idea. Let's head back to my place. Lupe's been cooking all day." At his home, Ernesto set me up in a cozy spare bedroom, and I met his wife Lupe and their kids. We had a hearty dinner, and afterward, Ernesto and I relaxed with cigars and a guardian of the local spirit that burned going down. We talked about everything except the mess I was dealing with, trying to keep things light before turning in for the night. The next morning, Ernesto drove me to the detention center where Lisa was being held. The place was grim, noisy, crowded, and reeking of sweat and despair. Inside, we were led to a small room where Lisa was waiting, looking pale and worn out, shackled to the table. I sat across from her, opened my briefcase, and laid the divorce papers on the table. You once gave me a choice, Lisa. Take you back or walk away. You know what I chose. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered, I'm sorry, Rick. I never wanted to hurt you. Spare me. I replied coldly. You plotted with Kate, met with Allison Hargraves, and tried to trap me. You lied about everything. I'm here for one reason. Sign these papers, and we're done. But I don't want a divorce, she pleaded. It's too late. You tried to destroy me, but it's over now. Sign the papers. Reluctantly, Lisa picked up the pen and signed where indicated, with the embassy official acting as a witness. Once it was done, I put the papers back in my briefcase. By the way, I added, I noticed you prepaid for the Ambassador Hotel. Since you won't be needing it, I'll use the reservation. Do whatever you want, she muttered. And just so you know, I plan to invite Karen. We'll finish what we started in the Middle East, just once if you don't mind. She glared at me, but I just shook my head. After everything you've done, don't even try to argue. As far as I'm concerned, we're done. Enjoy whatever's left of your life. I stood up and walked out, leaving her crying at the table. Outside, I saw Montoya by his car. He walked over, shook the embassy official's hand, and then turned to me. If you don't mind, I'd like to speak with Mr. Anderson privately for a moment, he said. The embassy official nodded and left. Montoya put his arm around my shoulder and said, Walk with me, Mr. Anderson. Call me Rick. I'm just a civilian now, I replied. He smiled. And you can call me Ricardo. Once in the military, always in the military, right? He said. Ernesto speaks highly of you. He's told me a lot of good things. You know Ernesto? I asked. Yes, we served together. When he joined Acme Global, I switched to being a prosecutor. I reviewed your evidence. It's solid. It'll save us a lot of time and resources, which is why I've decided not to pursue charges against you for criminal conspiracy, he said. I was taken aback. Don't be surprised, he continued. Ernesto explained your plan to me. If Lisa had been caught with a small amount, she might have just been fined and deported. But thanks to Ernesto, nothing illegal was actually bought, and the money you sent was redirected to a charity for widows and orphans. They're grateful for your contribution. I couldn't help but grin. Your cooperation and your record convinced me not to press charges. But let me be clear. If you ever pull something like this again, I won't hesitate to take action, he warned. I understand, Ricardo. Thank you. No, thank you. The information you provided is valuable. Justice will be served for your wife and Dr. Cardosa. I'm heading back to the States now, I said. If you return to Bogota, let's have dinner, he offered. I'd like that, Ricardo. We shook hands. Adios, Rick, he said. Adios, Ricardo, and thank you. I returned to Ernesto's car. Everything okay? He asked. Yes, Ernesto. All good, but I need to get to the airport. On the way, Ernesto apologized for not following my orders. Don't apologize, I said. You made the right call. I'm the one who should apologize for putting you in that situation. Don't worry about it, boss. I get it. If I were in your shoes, I might have done worse. But it all worked out. Yes, it did. Thank you for everything, Ernesto. I'll be in touch, and please give my best to Lupe and the kids. We shook hands. Take care, boss. Come back anytime for more, Guardian, he joked. Karen met me at the Ambassador Hotel on the day I was supposed to meet Lisa. We picked up where we left off in the Middle East, and it was a night I won't forget. Lying in bed, she said, I've put in my retirement papers, thinking of a new path. Oh, I asked, what's the plan? Becoming a full-time wife and homemaker, she said with a playful smile. Think there's an opening? I looked at her and teased. I think there's a vacancy. Want to apply? I already have, she laughed. And you know what? I've fallen in love with you, she said softly. I've fallen in love with you too, I replied. So, should we make it official? She asked, even though my divorce wasn't finalized yet. Why not? Will you marry me? I asked. She kissed me deeply. Yes, Rick, I love you more than anything. Marcy and Ben were convicted of drug trafficking in Colombia and received 12-year prison sentences along with hefty fines. Ben ended up in one of the roughest prisons and didn't last long. Rival cartel members took him out. Marcy had a slightly better fate in a women's prison, but her life was still grim. She gets a few visits from embassy staff, but the kids only send letters, and even those are sparse. They're reluctant to reunite with her. Penny and the others were released after the trial, but Penny went through a tough divorce and lost her job. I lost contact with Kate and Mark, though I heard they continued their alternative lifestyle. Leslie had to take a break after getting pregnant, with a father unknown. After Karen and I married, we sold the old house and bought a new one together. She's embraced being a homemaker, and even though I've offered her a role at Acme, she's chosen to focus on creating a happy home for us and caring for her beloved cat. I couldn't be happier with her decision.